The one piece that we really miss not doing this in person is like getting to spend lunchtime with you all and actually connecting. But I'm glad everybody got a little breather.
It's amazing to me that I'm so out of practice with Zooms now. Like I can't believe I tried to speak numerous times
Well,
with my mic not being on after having it just embedded in my DNA during the pandemic time.
I mean, even
So
during pandemic, somebody has to do it.
yeah, right.
All right. Let's see. I think I'm all set there. All right. Well, if we're all good to go, I think we could just get started on this next one. Lynn, you want to start us off?
Sure. Piano Arts of Wisconsin, Inc. And Jeff, you get to start us off this afternoon.
Right. So yeah, Piano Arts of Wisconsin out of Milwaukee, requesting $5,000 for Songs of the Settlers, a program that celebrates the stories of Wisconsin immigrants through their music and dance. It's the second season, and they'll be presenting the program in Platteville. And as a result of teacher requests, Songs of the Settlers is being expanded to Madison and Howard's Grove. Uh, to present the program, concert artists from Piano Arts will unite with partners including UW Platteville, traditional German singing societies, and 3 Wisconsin chapters of Sigma Alpha Lambda fraternity, who will serve as operational volunteers. I thought they had a strong foundation of planning and partnership, powerful opportunity to bring together many partners to amplify impact. I was very impressed by the experienced personnel kind of leading along with the singing societies and universities. The collection of artists, educators, and leaders will come together to culminate this project with a series of concerts paired with student essays. And the acknowledgement of diverse settlers in the title change shows a responsiveness to engaging with diverse audiences. This is essential as the program appears to oscillate in kind of a focal priority from the German influence to an acknowledgement of, quote, other ethnic settlers. And I'm left wondering how diverse voices are reflected in the teaching artists, and specifically in reference to the September programs that focus on music of Native Americans and French voyagers and early settlers. It just brought up some ideas of like, ooh, who do they tap for that? How is that done? In a sensitive way. But otherwise, I thought it's just, I was struck by just how specific of a program this is. It's really interesting to get a different folk tradition kind of like amplified as I'm in the south side of Milwaukee where more Spanish voices are prioritized. It's interesting to move around the state and see how different ethnicities and such are.
Thanks, Jeff. I think yes, Brittany was the second reader on this one, so we'll just open it up for discussion.
I agree with everything that Jeff said. It was an interesting application in that I wanted to know more, not because there wasn't really great information. I'm like, oh, I'm curious about all these other things and aspects that the grant application was great and that it covered it. But yeah, specifically the September thing, I really would wish there was just like all this room for them to really go into a lot of detail about the whole project and what every performance would be like. But yeah, I think it was really great to find an opportunity to value all sorts of different artistic expression, but then also too like the settlers who kind of were in this area, and then also acknowledge like the folks who were here before and trying to integrate all of those things throughout the project throughout the year, which I do think is very an important aspect of a project like this, to just be aware of the setting and location of all of the different participants, and would love to know more about those individuals who themselves are then going to help carry this project forward.
I wanted to highlight also the talkback sessions that they're doing as part of the performances. I thought that that was a really interesting way both to evaluate student knowledge and feedback after the performance, and also provide some immediate feedback from the students about how impactful this was for them. that could really feed some immediate change in performances moving forward. So I thought that was an interesting way to incorporate evaluation into performances in a way that was accessible to everyone who was present for that.
I agree with all those thoughts and comments, and during your thoughts and comments, my Google Chrome stopped working, so I am back.
Great. If there are, yeah, Jeff.
One other thing is that I think the documentation or like the work samples show a version of this that will probably look strikingly different from this iteration, and that I'm looking forward to like their ongoing documentation of this program changing and being responsive to the feedback. I think that's like, I hope that's acknowledged as their it helps I think a cause like this, an idea like this, kind of project out into the future for me, that they did a good job documenting the interactions. It's predominantly photography, but just the students engaging with like a folk tradition that's so blatantly a folk tradition in garb and in kind of instrumentation.
Thanks, Jeff. Other comments? If not, go ahead and score. Thank you, Dale. And our next here.
I'm ready when you all are. Play by Play Theater Inc., Green Bay. And Anna, you're going to start us off, and Emily will come in after.
Yes. Okay. This is a play-by-play theater in Green Bay. They are asking for $2,000, which is going to cover operating expenses and artist fees for the Percy project. This is a K-2 performance of Percy, the Poor Little Penguin. They have arts integration curriculum, and then there's also a professional development component for teachers. It's a 3-tiered program, so it is really interesting in the fact there's performance, there's the curriculum, and then there's the professional development piece. They're going to ask the teachers and participating school kind of what they want to do as far as the tiers. Let's see, they're working with a school to develop the programming, which I do like. I think that's really nice when one school can have the opportunity to help decide what the programming is going to look like based on their schedule and needs. I thought that one of the maybe areas for growth would just be the nature of this particular project. The way I was reading it, they were talking about there's a school that has not been identified. So I just felt like there was some vagueness about what this exact project would look like this year. They refer to the previous years, but I think that I understand what they're saying, and like this is what the project is and could be, but in trying to just determine funding, I felt like I just didn't have a firm understanding of how much of the things that they could do will they actually do with the school, and they obviously can't answer that question. And then they did include a lesson plan, but I thought it could be just a little bit more detailed, and if they could provide a professional development outline of what they could offer. Again, there's a lot of like things they could do, but I'm not really clear on what they are going to do. But overall, I do think like there is value in bringing performing arts programming to the younger students in school.
Thanks, Anna. Emily.
Yeah, I think that this program is great. I really appreciated the clear line of communication that it seems they have with the educators that they're working with. I think that's very important, especially when determining what level of support that they're offering based on the tiers in the program. I was interested when they were talking about in the second or third year of the project section. They mentioned that one of the pieces of constructive feedback they got was that they provided too many resources and educators felt like they couldn't complete it all, which is both great. And also I would be curious to know how they're taking that feedback then to continue developing those resources so that they were still applicable to educators and it didn't feel like for the educators, if they took the professional development track or that arts integration track, that then they were taking on this huge undertaking of learning the new curriculum. And oh my gosh, there's so many pieces and I don't know how we'll fit it all in. So curious to know how they've incorporated that feedback into that curriculum development. I'm also very excited about the discussion about partnering with On Broadway in Green Bay so that this could be presented in a public manner to the community. I think that that would help maybe with the idea that they are at this time only able to offer it to one school to just allow more children to be able to and families to be able to experience that.
Thanks, Brittany. Jeff or Jen?
Sure. I thank you. I think you covered so many of the points I had written down. I think it appears to me that they're setting themselves in a position to be able to engage on a really high level, but they're waiting for partners to match. And I agree that On Broadway would just take it to another scale, kind of relieve some of the pressure of like teachers just maybe not being able to build in that much engagement. But like one of the things that I noticed about the work sample is that I would love to see how youth are actually engaged, because the performance was kind of a performance at the students. And I don't really have a sense, and maybe it was in the lesson plan, of how the students are engaging with theater, the production of theater, or is it just the processing, witnessing, being a viewer, an experiencer of theater? If somebody had a good sense of that, that would help me in my scoring.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm actually gonna pull it up again, so I will just need a second. But yeah, I'd love to look at that a little bit more because I do agree, especially with the littles, trying to get them to engage, but also if you have standards and goals you're trying to meet, it can be a little bit difficult to not just have them kind of look at something and say, oh, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I noticed when I was reading this, because sometimes I copy pasted my notes, that there was some spelling errors. And the standards that they listed are mostly science standards that I can see in the lesson plan. And I would have liked some art standards in there as well.
Thank you all. I'll give you another minute just in case anyone has any other comments, or Anna, if you're looking back at that about Jeff's question on.
I am sorry, my computer is choosing this moment to go a little slow.
That's how it goes. No problem, no rush.
It looks like I also pulled it up. It looks like the way that they're engaging students in the lesson plan is through the zones of regulation. So like Percy's a charming penguin, he's allergic to the snow. How does he solve that? There's 4 zones of regulation. And then the students need to identify how Percy's response fits in those different zones and how he could modify that to be in a more proactive zone rather than a reactive zone. So I think less focusing on like the theater component of that and more the storytelling aspect or the social emotional learning. That is a lesson that's for kindergartners though. So, I mean, take that as what it is. I do like that at the end of this lesson plan, I am just noticing now that they include encouragement for teachers to push these lesson plans out and student workout through Seesaw, which is a learning management system. So students can share their work directly with their parents. The parents will see it right away. So there's some really like good instant feedback on that, which is pretty cool.
Super
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Emily said. I think the focus on the zones, but then also to identifying characters and the adventures of the characters in familiar stories, I think, and then being able to express that, specifically like in the process of a dramatic experience. So I do think it's helpful, but I think, yeah, it's hard with the littles because I think having more and more information about what exactly they are doing, what information you're giving them, and what responses you're kind of like giving them sentence stems to help respond and that kind of thing. I think that's where it's a little bit light. And I think there is a value in having students watch something and then just respond to it. I think there's tons of value in that. But I think, again, it could be fleshed out a little bit more as to how the students are going to be connecting what Percy does to what they themselves feel, because then that can help sort of integrate the experience more.
Great feedback. Thank you all. Other comments on this one? If not, go ahead and score. Thanks, Dale.
Okay. Prairie Music and Arts, Inc. from Sun Prairie. And Anna, you're going to be the reader this time.
I am. It's me again. Hold on. Am I prepared? Sorry. Yes,
That's
I am
okay.
ready. Let's see. This is Sun Prairie. Yes. Oh, yes. I remember this. Okay. Yes. $6,000 for artist fees. This is the after school arts program for second and eighth graders. This is an expansion of weekly classes and events now going to 3 middle schools. And they are also including this component about in addition to the creative practice itself, there's the business skill development, which I think is really, really interesting and really neat. They're doing, DJing and podcasting and that kind of thing, but then also talking about budgeting and, the financial component, and then thinking about, again, like being a working artist, which I think is amazing. I like the partners that they are working with. I didn't see information, or I didn't see as much information as I would have liked about how these classes and workshops will support those students with accessibility and different learning needs and types, sensory things. So I think that would just be a way that they could help even more improve an already great application. But again, they may have addressed that, and I just may have missed it.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so we will just open it up for discussion on this one.
I really appreciated that there were both in school and after school offerings for students. Just then like thinking about the schedule of what a middle school class schedule looks like, and that might not be super accessible for everybody if they were only in school offerings. So it's nice that they opened that up. It also looked like they had plans, or were starting to plan in the addition of 9th through 12th grade curriculum as well, which was very cool to see. So that program could scaffold as kids aged out of it through middle school as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Emily. I really like that, how they were already thinking ahead to how those students are going to be able to possibly continue this programming, and then also to build on it even more. And I thought that was a great forward thinking about the future of this project.
I liked that it's real world things, like real world careers, real world artists. I loved how they had their like display of the work that they did. It looks like they did like a kind of like almost like walk and look at what we've accomplished in this amount of time. So I like that as well. I like that it's so real world.
Yeah, I thought this was, thank you, everybody. I don't have much to add other than it just seems like an organization that's like hitting its stride, that's like envisioning where they could go. And this is just like a step towards that. So I thought they named some of the teaching artists, and it just seemed like their earlier success is starting to bring on great partners, and it's probably just going to amplify the impact. So,
Other comments on the Prairie Music and Arts application? If not, you can go ahead and score. Thanks, Dale. All right, our last application.
Walker Point Center for the Arts, Milwaukee. Emily, you're going to start, and then Jeff will finish up.
All right. So this is the Walker Point Center for the Arts, again, located in Milwaukee. They are applying for funding for a new component of an existing project and asking for $6,000. So Project Valentina is a bilingual art education program for participants ages 15 through 18. And they are specifically expanding into that age range because they are servicing kids who are currently aging out of programs that already exist through the Center for the Arts. So this program emphasizes utilizing social justice frameworks to help participants express feelings of community and culture and better connecting them to their surroundings. I was really taken by this application specifically. I think allowing students to have a voice for social justice causes in this way is a really unique experience for them, especially thinking about right here in central Wisconsin. I feel like that looks differently than it does down in the Milwaukee area. So allowing them to have an outlet and understanding how to branch into a population that the museum or the Center for the Arts isn't currently serving is a really incredible experience for them. I think the timeline for the project was very well communicated. I think they did a great job of communicating the staff who would be involved in each portion of the project. The standards for evaluation they're using feel very rigorous, and really made me feel like the project was going to be academically and artistically challenging for the teens that are participating in that. It also felt like it would give them the opportunity to really shape the program as they went, which is something, especially when you're working with older students, is very important, because I'm right. Teenagers are very opinionated and they will make their thoughts known whether you'd like it or not. So allowing them to have control over that, especially when you're encouraging them to advocate for causes they're passionate about, is very important. I think I would have just liked more clarity about some of the things that they are making, maybe is where I'm at. I think the pictures that they submitted and work samples were helpful to an extent, but I feel like I would have liked more information about the things that they were hoping to do throughout that program or directions that teens were interested in taking throughout that. So just more clarity there would have been helpful for me as I was looking through things.
Emily?
yeah, thank you for that setup. That was awesome. I think that you just started touching on something that I was looking for, which is they reference 10 artists who will be directly involved, uh, considering they're going to be engaging with 8,500 adults and 1,800 engaged in-person children or youth. Um, it really does depend on what artists you get on being able to engage with that. And I know them. I know they have a huge list of artist network, but it did appear kind of vague, like they're trying to just like make this happen and then they'll pull in artists. I always love to see kind of artists you envision to work with because it helps me get there. Uh, I did think it was a really strong um, application, specifically the kind of like variety of. Um, I mean, the work samples were from the pandemic, and I believe that was the last time they worked with high school age students. But they did everything from audio, like they had a band camp, they had photography, they had a website. The website was actually like very interesting collection of these um, actually ideal versions of kind of testimonial feedback of an experience from the students. It's like right there, they're talking about their experience, they're talking about what they got out of it, they're talking about their dreams moving forward. I think that's really strong. Um, there's thing, one piece of feedback though. Okay, so this version of the application references community partners, artists, educators, and mentors. But like the description of the quote, evolving landscape of Walker's Point neighborhood, the proposal is relatively vague in that respect. It's just kind of like hoping to get there instead of describing what it would be if we're there. And that's the one piece that's like, maybe that's what this is just getting you to the point where you can start identifying those community partners, artists, educators, and mentors outside of their staff. That was very clear. So that's the one piece in a very strong application. A little bit of feedback.
Thanks, Jeff. Anna or Jen?
I second everything everyone has already said. I think, again, yes to this being a really strong application. The only constructive feedback I would say is just for this particular application, I would really support them including information about Wisconsin's social and emotional learning competencies, as well as the social studies standards. I just think in general for applications, if it's school-age students, even if you're not directly tied to a school, it's just so beneficial when you're seeking any sort of funding to really understand the state standards and to understand how the work that you're doing really, really supports a lot of these things and can support multiple branches of the standards. And I think this particular project, the Wisconsin Social and Emotional Learning Competencies, it's not necessarily something that is included a lot in applications. And so I think it can help just emphasize the understanding of multiple goals that folks have for helping support students and make sure they're just well-rounded citizens. And I think this application already shows that it can do that and wants to do that. And I think there's just ways to help boost it up even a little higher.
Great. Thanks, Anna.
I think playing off of the standards conversation as well, it used to be called Teaching for Tolerance. Now it looks like it's called Learning for Justice, but they have a set of social justice standards that can be used inside and outside of the classroom. So I'm just thinking about another source of places they could get some of those standards for learning from as well.
That's a really great idea. I hadn't thought about that. And I think that's an excellent fit, just in general, but especially for this application. Yeah.
I agree with all your thoughts.
Great feedback. Thank you all. If there are no other comments on the Walker's Point application, we will go ahead and ask you to score. Great. You've done it. Thank you all. That's amazing. What we'll do now is we'll give Dale a little bit of time to average and rank those scores, and then he'll send them to me and I'll share them on the screen with us and we can just have a conversation about what you all have wrought here. So that's great. I would say let's give him 10 minutes. So around 1 o'clock, we'll just, hop back in. And wow, thank you all again. Dale, do you need anything else from me right now?
Nope, I'll let you do it. Thanks.
Great. Dale has shared this with me, so I will go ahead and just share my screen and I'll let you all take a look at the scores. Is it teeny tiny, or can you all sort of see that?
Can see it.
So at this point, we'll just give you a couple minutes to look at the scores and again, see if there's a place where you think there's a kind of natural break. And, below that line, you'd recommend, those applications would not be recommended for funding. Above that would be recommended for funding. So I'll just give you a minute, and then whoever wants to chime in, please feel free. Do you have initial thoughts about what you're seeing, or if you see a break?
Feel like there's larger natural break point between artworks from Milwaukee and artists working in education. But it could also be, I guess it depends on how right, where other people's opinions are too. Everything is really close up until the Betty Bryn Children's Museum as well, and then there's a little bit more discrepancy, but even that is 2 points off of each other from the higher spot. The big break happens down after artworks from Milwaukee.
At 84.5 to 78.25.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree with that.
Anyone have other I do think that points wise, I think that's the biggest gap that we have here before this 73 to 62. So it sounds like there's sort of consensus around that, around setting the floor at Artworks for Milwaukee. But anybody have other thoughts or objections to that? Right, so I just want to make sure it's unanimous here. We just need like a thumbs up or a all good on setting the floor at 84.5. All good? Okay, great. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then. Thank you all. That was painless from my perspective. I just got to listen to all of your really thoughtful feedback, so thank you. But you all really did make it easy on our end, so much appreciated. At this point, we just kind of open it up just for your feedback on how did it go today, the review process from your perspective, feedback on that, trends that you saw, maybe areas for improvement that the Arts Board could be of assistance in offering, technical assistance to some of these applicants. Just any feedback you'd like to provide would be really helpful for us.
I would just second my request from the beginning for a rubric. I think that would be really helpful because I think I know for myself, I start you lose points. You start with everything and then you lose points. And I think that there can be some discrepancy of what deserves to lose points. And I think someone starting from the bottom and then going up, it's going to average out. But I think just understanding what you all are looking for consistency wise, and then also to if there's criteria for the range of points, just again, it just helps a little bit to understand what for me is maybe not necessarily a question and a comment, and I think is part of this process, but I don't necessarily think needs to impact the point system. But other folks may feel like, no, no, that absolutely, like you have to meet this sort of criteria first before you can then earn those points. And again, like everyone has a different process, and I believe it absolutely will all average out, but it can just be really helpful because everyone's bringing something different to it and has different ways to have the comments and the points work together, and to just know kind of what you all are looking for as far as those two component pieces and how you're looking for them to match up.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead.
You go.
Okay. I think there's something about doing it for my first time that I think overly I was overthinking a lot. And then as I went through it, I got kind of a sense of how these all kind of were trying to express their vision, some points, areas of focus for just starting with taking on the application. And again, starting with all the points and then whittling down. But something strange happened that like I was most critical for some of the best proposals because their proposals were so on point, and then there's this little piece that could just be tweaked to take it to another level. I wouldn't want that to ever get nudged down, and so I think having gone through it once, I would be way more confident in doing it again and feeling comfortable with where things fell, because just looking at how everybody averaged out, there was a pretty clear trend that most of these applications were solid. And then there were, I don't know, not having that in my head prior made it challenging until it wasn't. So I think bringing back certain people to do it again and again, I think you'll just get a clearer judging, I guess, and feedback.
Sounds like you want to serve again next year, Josh.
Oh, geez. I really enjoyed this conversation. So, but more so, I just think like, I don't know how often new folks come into this, but I would maybe like, I don't know. I guess it's the smart part of the design of this is that where I was most like just not very confident in some of the earlier ones, other people filled in and kind of were able to teach me how to go about it. So that was good.
Yeah, you all were great for that. So thank you.
Loved the split screens. I've done a lot of reviews like for candidates for a board or proposals for a conference, and I really liked the split screen ability. It was easy to not have to write it all down and then go back in and write my notes. It was super. I really loved that.
Any other thoughts on the Smart Simple system itself or portions of the application that maybe you didn't give as much attention to or didn't inform your scoring quite as much? We're always trying to, pare it down, but then also require all of the information that you all need to make an assessment of the application. So any feedback on the application itself is helpful too.
I really loved the variety of supporting materials that they were able to submit. I feel like for some of the applications where we had questions about artists who were involved or people who were coming through, or in the case of the one application in Milwaukee where there are people, Jeff, that you're very familiar with, as someone who is not familiar as much with some of those people, having bios submitted for them was very helpful in gauging the quality of the application as well. So I really appreciated having those.
I have yeah, I agree with you, Emily. And I guess I have a question, because this is my first time serving for you all, is understanding like as panelists, and we kind of have the orientation, but you don't really know, like Jeff is saying, until you go through it, that our job is to evaluate the quality of the application, the quality of the project. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are in the criteria, but knowing like what the scope is of like Jeff is saying, if you have to make hard calls about something, a good project that maybe is not as strongly written, or a really, really fantastic application that has like a couple of gaps where, yeah, it could be better. And understanding like how you evaluate that again. This all goes back to the point system again, which having it 100 points for whatever some reason just really throws me off. I'm like, this is really hard, not understanding how you all are breaking it down and then how you want us all to break it down. But I do agree with Jeff. I think it will all even out. And I know that we all are looking at things in different ways, and our scores combined is what helps you make sure that it gives a really good overall impression of what's happening. Because I know for me, I'm personally like, you gotta like really work to lose points because I really want to come from it from the understanding of folks who are writing applications without a grant writer, who don't necessarily understand all of the things that go into grant writing, and it's a really big application. So that's just my 2 cents again for the
Yeah.
scoring.
That's really helpful. And I think that part of that is um, having the discussion. I think that you all did a really good job, and I might have touched on this, of just filling in where others said, like, I had a question about this, or I didn't have enough clarity on this. Like, did anybody else pick that up? And that's really helpful. And I think that the discussion, a number of state arts agencies have moved away from this kind of, in-person panel review process. Or maybe you review portion of the submitted applications, and there's some kind of preliminary review, and then you review others. But I think that for us, it's like, man, them getting to tune in and get this feedback is really, really helpful. And I know that that doesn't help you with scoring, Anna, but I think that I do think it all kind of evened out. And I think that where, a couple where you had some more major concerns, I think that came through, and I think that that's clear in your recommendation to the board. But I think others where it was, I can read that this is a strong project, but there are some gaps here. It's so helpful for them to know, like, these are the gaps. So as you move ahead, in a year two or in a future proposal, this will only strengthen your, request. So again, just thank you all. But I totally hear you on a rubric.
Yeah, and I think that is helpful. And I do appreciate this format where we have the panel because I've been on other grants where the scoring process is different because that's all you get. You get your comments and then you get the score. So the scores really, really are the only thing that will reflect. Whereas, the comments and having this feedback is like there are so many parts that go into recommendations, not necessarily this is what funding is going to happen, but like these are recommendations based on what we're seeing. But again, I'm always trying to, in the work that I'm doing, coming at it from the point of those who are writing these grants, who just are trying to get out in the community and do stuff and don't necessarily have the ins and outs of writing a flawless application.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, like I said, you're all's technical assistants today. And then that helps inform the technical assistance that we can go out and do too for these organizations. So that's great. Other thoughts on the process or trends that you observed or trends you didn't observe, things you expected to be? And did you feel prepared for today? As 3 out of 4 of you were first-time panelists, I feel like I'm just always bombarding you with emails, but there's a lot to cover and a lot to orient you to. So and if you want to follow up, in an email about that, happy to talk about it that way. But feedback on that orientation process too is always really helpful.
I'm leaving this feeling more confident about the kind of funding structure of things happening within Wisconsin because of the orientations, because of the time to review, because of the kind of welcome into this process today, even just like the breakdown prep. And then having multiple individuals on the Zoom serving multiple roles. It's just like, oh yeah, this is probably what I should expect out of this type of like machine of funding that's happening throughout the state and making projects happen. I'm leaving like I'm ready to go talk to all my colleagues about like, hey, this is a really interesting approach as we're moving into our own application season for artists and residents and things. There are things I learned from this process that I'll definitely take in and use to tweak our current systems. So thank you.
That's great. Love to hear that, Jeff.
I can keep going. I just have lots
Yeah,
to say.
please.
Yes, I'm not in charge of deciding who gets to sit on panels, but I'm all for artists sitting on the panels. I'm all for teachers sitting on the panels. I think it's super, super important. I know artists are very busy and they're doing all their own things, but I think having their voice in the room to help just clarify some of these things. I thought Jeff did a great job about bringing his expertise with that. I thought Emily and Jen did a great job of bringing their expertise as teachers to kind of say, like, here are things you can think about to, again, just keep in mind when you're looking at the application. But I think when it comes to partnering with artists and finding artists and then including them in the process, are they just coming in? Are they actually helping develop it? Are they doing a lot of the work of bringing in their own like curriculum? I think, again, like those were things that I think we could always use more artists in the room to talk about. And then my only other thing would be, well, there's probably more, but the thing right now is that for me, and this might just be for me because right now it's a very, very busy season for my organization. We're going into our summer season, but the timeline felt a little like for 19 applications, it felt a little tight, but that could also just be my life.
No, it's not. It's not just that. This year I do think this was a quicker term. We usually give at least 3 weeks, and this year it was a crunch. So thank you all for working with that timeline. Really grateful for that. But noted, because I agree, and I think we already like made a note to ourselves to not do that again. So
With the tight turnaround, though, I do appreciate your quickness in emailing and checking in. Like, honestly, right now it's like whatever is dominating attention gets attention. And so I just appreciate it. I felt a responsibility to this, but like the check-in, like you haven't opened up the application yet. Like that little nudge was like, oh yeah, let's focus for a second and knock this out. Yeah.
and I so appreciated your quick response to say like, I'm on it, I'm doing it, because then I didn't have to worry about it. So glad to hear that, Jeff. And Jen, thank you as a teacher to take a day and get a substitute, to coordinate all of that. We're really grateful for that. So I totally hear you, Anna. So important to have educators and artists, in the room as we're evaluating these. Other thoughts? Any Anna, I so valued, because we don't always get this on a panel, evaluation, a focus on evaluation. I really appreciated that because I think you brought it to the surface a number of times. So that was great. Were there any portions of the application where you felt like applicants could really use a little extra technical assistance with one piece or another? Or, I mean, and you gave very clear feedback, all of you, throughout the day. So happy to just take that as well.
I think it's just another example of like why being able to have these conversations and see one another as somebody has a different focus. Like I will leave being more conscious of evaluation as a result of actually everybody kind of had their own focus on what they kind of like went to every time. And I think I'm leaving stronger as a result. But then I think my thing and the thing I'll keep coming back to is like to get around some of that challenge of how do I write for this grant? Or let's say you don't have a grant writer and you're just kind of hustling and doing it on your own. Like documentation. Like tell your story in a variety of ways, because that for me got around some of the weirdness of how they worded something. I could just go to those work samples and it's like, oh, that's what they mean. Like right there, I just saw it, or I just watched it, or I just heard it. So I would just encourage people to take advantage of it. The people who are lighter on work samples, like, are you just a good writer and do you just like know how to get a grant, or like does this match with like the feel of this experience? And so like just emphasizing for applicants a balance of those things, I think is huge.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Jeff. Lynn, do you have any observations on the day? Any comments?
Absolutely.
I thought you might.
This panel, this is the second time I've done this where I've been the monitor. You were so thoughtful in your critiquing, and it was always kindly done. You were so prepared. I never had to remind anybody about time. I never had to remind anybody to stay focused. You just did a great job. And trust me, I know how much work you put into this, and it is so appreciated when it comes down to us being able to know that you did this work so that when we vote, that we're voting to give the money to the right people. So thank you very, very much.
Indeed. And on that, I want to make sure everyone gets paid. So I think that I have Jen, I have your stuff. Anna, I have your paperwork. Emily, I think there was one piece of a change of name form that we were waiting on.
Yep, I
Okay.
can give that to you today.
Cool. And then Jeff, I can't remember if you send it over. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll send it over today.
Yes.
Thank you.
And with the acknowledgement that it's a compensation for just a portion of your time and expertise. So we are just so grateful for that. And I really enjoyed working with all of you. And I hope that you will consider serving as panelists again in the future, now that you've done it once. So, and hope to see you all, out in the non-Zoom world sometime soon. But
Yeah, maybe at APT.
Yes, that would be lovely.
My goodness, what a cool season coming up.
Yes.
You all should. One of the great things about my job is I just get to be this like almost like rich, cool aunt and give out complimentary and discounted tickets and meet up with people and have great experiences. So yeah, if anyone is ever over in the Spring Green area, it's going to be a fantastic season. I'm really, really excited. But yes, absolutely. I think you all have contact information. If you're ever around or ever would like to come, like we can make it happen.
Love that. Well, it's been a couple of years. I got to get out there, Anna, so I'll let you know. Well, yeah, on that, I will dismiss you all and thank you again and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks all.